through evidence. I'm Lisa Lacera, Fox News. Authorities in Texas now say the suspect that shot and killed 19 children and 2 teachers at Robb Elementary School Tuesday was not known to them and did not have any known mental health issues.
With all the different agencies that are involved, we're working every angle that's available. And we won't stop until we get all the answers that we possibly can.
Victor Escalon with the Texas Department of Public Safety, and he says 18 by Border Patrol agents, a makeshift memorial outside the school.
21 white crosses sit in front of this Texas elementary school. Each one stands for an innocent life lost in the Uvalde school shooting. Now another tragedy as the husband of one of the heroic teachers has died. The family saying Irma Garcia's husband, Joe Garcia, passed away this morning of a medical emergency. But really, they say he died of a broken heart.
Fox's Alexis McAdams in Uvalde. On the Senate floor this afternoon, Majority Leader Chuck Schumer again called for gun control legislation.
These families, my colleagues, don't want thoughts and prayers. They want their elected leaders to respond to their suffering.
Schumer's comments coming after Democrat-backed legislation failed, though a bipartisan group of senators is trying to find a compromise. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis has signed a measure that will require statewide certification of condominiums over 3 stories tall. The measure comes in response to last year's collapse of the condo in Surfside that killed 98 people. Recertification will be required after 30 years or 25 years if the building is within 3 miles of the coast. China and Russia vetoed a UN resolution that would have imposed tough new sanctions against North Korea for its recent ballistic missile launches. America is listening to Fox News.
It's the perfect season for a powerful business upgrade with Dell Technologies Summer Sale Event. Save up to 45% on secure PCs built for business with Windows 10 Pro. You'll also find great savings on Dell servers, monitors, docks, and other accessories to help boost productivity. Plus, enjoy free shipping on everything. Do more with modern devices and Windows 10 Pro. Call 877-ASK-DELL for a Dell Technologies advisor who can help you find the right tech. That's 877-ASK-DELL for business specials during Dell's Summer Sale Event.
At Progressive, we know there's nothing like the feeling of riding a motorcycle with your crew on the open road. That symphony of engines roaring in perfect harmony. It's a feeling that would be impossible to recreate on the radio. Until now. Hit it, Jerry. Oh, my word. Really, really terrible. Is that a glockenspiel, Jerry? Quote with Progressive and see if you could save with America's #1 motorcycle insurer. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates.
No, Jerry, it's over.
Governor Gretchen Whitmer has signed a new directive that instructs state agencies to ignore requests from other states looking to prosecute women for seeking abortions.
This ahead of an expected ruling by the U.S. Supreme Court that may overturn Roe v. Wade.
It would essentially transport Michigan back to 1931.
Becky Tukataba with the Michigan ACLU over an old state law that would make abortions a felony that a former attorney for the ACLU and now federal judge has just put on hold.
There should be no compromise.
Michigan Right to Life's Genevieve Marnin, Governor Whitmer, a Democrat, also instructing departments to look for any possibilities to grow protections for abortions. Jeff Manasso, Fox News.
New information from the Census Bureau reveals details on population declines in large U.S. cities.
The pandemic population loss from big U.S. cities like New York, Los Angeles, and Chicago was reported in March by the Census Bureau, but now we're getting a better look at why it happened. New census numbers show that 8 out of the 10 largest U.S. cities lost population in their first year of the pandemic. Between July 2020 and July 2021, New York lost more than 305,000 people, while Chicago and Los Angeles lost 45,000 and 40,000 people, respectively. Reasons vary by city, but some cited include housing costs, jobs, births, and deaths. Among the 10 largest U.S. cities, only San Antonio and Phoenix gained new residents, but only by about 13,000. In New York, Tanya J. Powers, Fox News.
U.S. economy shrank in the first 3 months of the year, even though consumers and businesses kept spending at a solid pace. The government reports a slight downgrade of its previous estimate for the first quarter. It says the drop likely doesn't signal the start of a recession. It says the contraction was caused in part by a wider trade gap and a slower restocking of goods in stores. I'm Lisa Lacera, and this is Fox News.
Hey, Tony and Corey here with the Weekend Warriors Home Improvement Show. Hey, Tony, you got some tips on how to get your house ready for summer?
Yeah, start by making a list. Then knock the easiest ones out first. Set realistic goals. And finally, don't be a perfectionist.
Well, you've never been accused of that.
Ouch.
Well,
Tune in this weekend.
understand
You'll
why it's
definitely get a
not
laugh and you'll
playing
likely get some good advice, but only if you listen.
You can catch Parr's Weekend Warriors on Saturdays from 3 to 4 here on KWRO-AM 630 and 101 FM.
This is AM 630 and FM 101.1 KWRO. Listen live online and find out about community events at KWRO.com. Hi, it's JT with your South Coast weather forecast. Partly cloudy skies tonight, increasing clouds in the late night and early morning hours with a low of 53 and light winds. Overcast conditions for your Friday with a high of 61 and a few showers on Friday night, becoming a steady rain overnight. Thank you for listening. Stay safe out there.
Do you find yourself stuck in a timeshare? Get the real facts about the timeshare industry and your options for cancellation. Chuck McDowell, founder of Wesley Financial Group, beat the largest timeshare company in federal court and has put together a free information guide that reveals the secrets the timeshare industry doesn't want you to know, including the 5 ways to get rid of your timeshare. Call now and get this timeshare information guide absolutely free. Call 800-960-33.
Ask questions. Please come up and grab this mic because we're broadcasting live and we want to make sure everybody can hear it out there in the radio world. It's also a historic occasion with all the years that bicoastal media has been around, and KWRO 630 AM in this community and this county and this part of the Oregon coast. This is the very first time that
I'd say the Democrat Party's propaganda apparatus is everywhere. It's everywhere. Stephen Colbert, who is unwell, and a Democrat Party shill, of course.
Well, that didn't work. Come on now.
One more time. Come on, guys. They have the technology.
I think they figured out that something went weird, and then
thank
there we
the
go.
man who's going to be doing the work tonight and doing the heavy lifting. And I took the opportunity to go on the web and look up David Brock Smith. And you know, there's over 40,000 David Brock Smiths on the web. One of them's a cab driver in Long Island, New York. Another one is a fish processor in Delaware. They also have a David Brock Smith who's a timeshare salesman in the Caribbean. I thought that could work. And another one who's a minister of the First Baptist Church in Ohio. But this is our David Brock Smith. He's a little bit different. He's a native son. He grew up here on the Oregon coast. We're so proud of him and all his accomplishments. I think I'm most impressed by the fact that he helped his dad run a bar. So we're really happy about that. But he's done an amazing job in the legislature. He's been able to go there to Salem on our behalf and leverage something, not very much of anything really, into something special for this community. He's been able to take a little bit and turn it into a lot consistently, and we are so proud of him. And as I have him come up, I know he and I both want to thank all the veterans who are here tonight. We so deeply appreciate everything you've done for us, and you're the reason that we could be here tonight in this community room and have this presentation. So now I want to introduce my dear friends who I'm so proud of, and thank you for being here. David Brock Smith.
Thank you all very much, and thank you so much for being here. And again, I want to, as we move into our Memorial Day, I do want to thank our veterans that are all here and appreciate your service. My father served 27 years in the Navy, retired Lieutenant Commander Mustang. And so that's the big shoes that I had to follow growing up as I tried to follow in his ideals and moving forward in service to our communities. I also want to give a shout out to Alex Carlatos, who is here with us today. Appreciate him coming over. He's been seriously engaged in this process and listening to all of the constituents up and down the coast and their opinions and concerns about BOEM's process and moving forward. And really appreciate, Alec, all of your engagement in this process and understanding of what's happening and what's moving forward. So thank you so much for being here. So It is. It's always an honor and privilege. I just want you to know to serve you in the state legislature. I have the philosophy that I work for all of you. You are my constituents. We might not always agree, but on everything. But we agree quite a bit on a lot of things. And I'm here today because the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management is moving forward with proposed call areas that will soon, at the end of this year, possibly turn into lease areas that will have of offshore wind that will then be floating platforms in our fishing waters off of Coos Bay and Brookings. There are 2 proposed call areas. There were 3. I believe there was a call area on the abandoned high spot that was removed before these were presented. It was removed more than likely because they knew that they wouldn't want to put something there anyway because of the natural ecology, the seafloor. It was not a opportune spot for them. And so as I deal with things in the legislature like this, you've put, as Bob understands, Commissioner Maine is here, they put things forward so that they can then pull something back and say, hey, see, we gave you something. And so I just wanted to talk to you about the process, where we are, talk to you about the bill that I drafted, and then I want to hear from you. This is the 6th and final listening session as of now that I've attended. I tried to get some resources to have Oregon Solution facilitate a stakeholder engagement. I was unable to do so. I say because I have the wrong letter next to my name in the Oregon legislature, unfortunately. But so we move forward, and I've been trying to do this out of the Coastal Caucus in my office. And so we've had 2 listening sessions and engagement with the Caucus Indian tribe and Coos Bay, one in Newport, one in Brookings, one in Astoria. And here we are today in Charleston. And I appreciate Susan Chambers for being here and her partner, Lori Steele of the West Coast Processors, Heather Mann of the Mid-Coast Trawl, and Yelena from the Trawl Commission, who have all been thoroughly engaged in this process long before even I drafted the state planning bill. So you all have the opportunity to have the handout there. BOEM has designated these purple areas, again, off of Coos Bay and Brookings. Now, mind you, and so the proposal for the 3 gigawatts from BOEM is that because there's nothing in the pipeline, which takes decades, to add transmission to the coast. And so BOEM is focused on the 3 gigawatts because that's all they can build. And they're focused in these areas. My understanding is that BOEM has to have a slope of roughly 10% or less for the anchoring of these floating platforms. And they also, when we can argue about depths later, because there's a recent call area that was announced off of the East Coast that actually pushes them out to 2,600 meters in depth, where these you're looking at roughly 1,300 to 700 to 500 meters in depth. I want to go through right now. They're in the planning and analysis process where BOEM has published the call information. BOEM has identified the priorities where these wind energy areas are, and then they'll move forward and they may prepare an environmental assessment for lease issuance. But normally the EIS does not come until after the lease areas are determined and announced, which if we have any fishermen in the room, that is backwards from the normal way that you would normally do anything. And I know that we have any crabbers in the room, we and the Coastal Caucus fought to help you with NOAA with regards to whale entanglement, where this lease process doesn't really have any engagement with NOAA in those areas. And it's very concerning that there seems to be a double standard in the process in moving forward when it comes to BOEM not having to go through the environmental impacts that everyone else would have to when we're doing anything in the ocean, let alone on land. And so I just kind of want to go over what I've heard. Again, this is the sixth area, give you some information, and then talk about the state bill and its usefulness to this process, and then open it up to all of you. So again, 20% of these areas will roughly be the lease area, so it's not this entire area. The cons, there's quite a few, right? You're taking up fishing grounds within the leased area, which is a problem, especially to our trawl fleet. And right now you have a lot of that trawl fleet for whiting down in the Brookings Call area, fishing as we speak. You have situations where there's lack of data. And significant data in that we have just a bountiful ecological wonder. They call it the fourth best natural ocean area in the world, but it has roughly 20% greater ecological benefit of species and diversity and growth because of the California current that brings those waters up, and then the wind that creates the upwelling. And all of our fishermen in the room know all of this. And that upwelling just provides the nutrients and the food for the bountiful life that we have off of our coast here of Oregon. And frankly, we have our engagement with Susan Chambers and our fishermen and our federal and state agencies, that we have the ability to continue the sustainable fishing practices that we do off the coast in our oceans and our waters. And just a reminder, Oregon only has control over the first 3 miles, right? Territorial seas, and then the feds are beyond. And so there's no science, right? We know that if you have an array of wind turbines, that the wind behind them is slower. How is that slowing of the wind in these sections that they're proposing going to impact the upwelling and everything else behind it? You're going to have to anchor these platforms to the sea floor by either cable or chain. Those cables or chains are going to have to be, we understand, longer, right, because of the swell that it's going to need to deal with. They're going to have to be longer. So those cables or chains will be scouring that seabed and that seafloor in those areas while they're there, which then could create a massive sand plumes in the ocean that normally wouldn't be there, which could cause issues with our sea life in those areas. There's going to be, my understanding is there's going to be multiple platforms that are then going to be linked together and kind of in a daisy chain to then be linked into a floating substation, which then that floating substation has the main cable coming to shore. And once it hits roughly 300 feet, then it is buried 6 feet in the ground onto shore. That is where your local jurisdiction does have authority with regards to siting, planning, and so forth, be it county, city, and state. I'm going to go to some pros now, right? The Oregon coast, especially down here where we are, we're at the end, and a lot of my constituents are on Coos Curry Electric, the local co-op, which gets its power from Bonneville. But we're at the end of a very long extension cord from the Bonneville Power Administration. And so having this energy source in the ocean powering into the grid for energy resiliency is a positive thing. Again, I'm not trying to convince you to be pro or against. I'm trying to lay out what I've heard through this process of speaking to probably over, I'd say, 400 people in the last couple of weeks as I travel around the state, up and down the coast. There was another possible pro. There was an economic development study done with the infrastructure and area that you have at the Port of Coos Bay, that these platforms and turbines could be manufactured and assembled and floated to place from the Port of Coos Bay. So the jobs associated with those activities would be here and local, and they would be purchasing local product and utilizing local resources. There is, that's about it on the pro side there. I'll close up with the other parts, which are called multi-factor lease provisions, and then we'll talk about the House Bill 3375, and then we'll open it up. So, in fact, California is going through a similar process right now through BOEM, and they just released a partial list of their what they call multi-factor lease provisions, or just lease provisions, where you have the developer, the offshore wind developer, must meet these lease provisions to benefits of the community and displacement of the fishers. So part of that is a mitigation fund that is set up. That money is put into by the company to have there for any offsets associated with fishing loss of fishing dollars for fishermen, right? So if the fisherman turns in the receipts from the previous year, let's say 20 and 21, and they because of these placements of these turbines, they show a loss because they couldn't fish in those areas, then they would be compensated out of the mitigation fund. There's lease provisions where the fishing fleets can have upgraded equipment paid for to their vessels, so that they have upgraded radar equipment to deal with the new. My understanding is there's situations where, because these things are so massive and they put out electromagnetic field, that it can disrupt radar equipment, and so there's radar equipment that can see through that, and a lease provision can be made where that equipment is purchased for the vessel. But not only that, but complete overhauls and upgrades to other vessel equipment and fishing fleet equipment. Lease provisions can also include, now let me tell you, I've heard from all the fishers up and down the coast, they do not want to be paid not to fish, right? That's something that has resonated from Astoria to Brookings, okay? And then lastly, lease provisions can invest in workforce training. There's jobs associated with these that are not just the manufacturing side, welding side, and so forth, but there's high-powered jobs that are diving, because a lot of these will have to be, inspected, and there will be dive teams that do that on a regular basis. There's ROVs, there's all kinds of jobs associated with that. do we have the folks here to fulfill those jobs? I don't know, and I can't tell you. Could they stay here and live in our communities? If we can fix the other housing problems from the state to allow us to build it, maybe. But pardon me. Well, I mean, so you can put a lease provision in that roads that are going to be used for the construction and of these turbines, that they must be maintained, and they could help be maintained. So lastly, I want to talk about House Bill 3375. Many think that, David Brock Smith, what the heck's he thinking? He's passing an offshore wind planning bill. So this process has been happening for about 2.5, 3 years. So Walter Chuck, who's on the Port Commission for Newport, has been part of the task force, that is BOEM task force, that has been looking at this for a number of years. And so knowing it was coming, we needed to be prepared as a state, because there was no state engagement process moving forward. And so enter 3375, which was the state's planning bill. Again, it was at 3 gigawatts because we knew that there couldn't be, the only transmission capacity could be 3 gigawatts up and down the coast. And so that was easy to put there. But you'll notice in the bill that it talks about protecting our fishermen and protecting our ratepayers and so forth, because we wanted to be part of the process. And what triggered it would allow Oregon Department of Energy to have its own listening and engagement and comment process, so that you have the state engaged rather than the feds. Because when these things happen with BOEM, as we talked about before, BOEM doesn't have to adhere to the NOAA requirements and the EISs and so forth that everyone else does. And so I wanted to make sure that, and my colleagues wanted to make sure that there was a process in place through the state of Oregon to have your voice heard, so that the state could come up and present a report after listening to all of you and the opportunities of what is presented, and be able to give that report to the state of Oregon, so that we can have a voice, a louder voice for all of you, federal process through BOEM. That was the purpose of the bill. It wasn't to bring it here because it was already coming. It was meant to be there so that you can have the engagement that is necessary, so that I can listen to you. And again, as I said before, I wish we would have the opportunity to move forward and have kind of an independent Oregon solutions process, but I wasn't able to get that done. So the Coastal Caucus and myself decided to move forward and do these engagement listening sessions so that your voice can be heard up and down the coast. We'll be drafting a letter from the Coastal Caucus to our federal delegation, to BOEM, to the Oregon Department of Energy, and the governor, after hearing all of you up and down the coast from Brookings to Astoria. Again, I can't thank you enough. Can't thank KWRO. I can't thank England Marine enough for supporting this tonight. Chuck's Seafood, of course, Mel Campbell, and my dear friend Cam Perry and Hooked on Oregon for putting all this together and giving you the voice here in Charleston that is so desperately needed.
Well, we're going to take a short break. This is a live presentation coming over KWRO 630 AM and 101.1 FM of the last listening session in the state of Oregon on the proposed offshore wind energy project. And it's featuring David Brock Smith. And when we come back, we're going to be getting questions from the public. When you come on up, please state your name and where you're from, and we'll be sure to get you in. Hold the mic up close so everybody can hear you. So we will be right back.
Do you enjoy watching high school football and basketball? How would you like to get paid to attend the games we cover during the season? The high school sports season is coming up very quickly, and Bicoastal Media is in search of 1 or 2 announcers to join our team part-time to announce our games. If you're interested, come into Suite 519 in the Hall Building in Coos Bay and fill out an application. You can also give us a call at 541-267-2121 or email me at blions@bicoastal.media.
Do you have what it takes?
Most of Lorky Law's clients are good people, but a felony record still gets in the way.
I had been non-justice involved for about 11 years. I feel like at the time I had
My part-time service in the Army National Guard makes it possible for me to be more for the community I call
good
home.
people, but a felony record still gets in the way.
I had been non-justice involved for about 11 years. I feel like at the time I had achieved about as much as I possibly could without completely expunging my criminal record.
Jesse and Elizabeth Lorky are Oregon attorneys who help people throughout the state clean up criminal records.
I had the privilege of meeting Liz and was able to talk to her about where things could go in the trajectory of my career if my record was expunged.
Oregon's rights restoration laws are some of the best in the nation.
Prior to meeting Liz, I had actually talked to at least 3 attorneys, and after they did a little bit of research, they said that it just wasn't able to be expunged. Liz very confidently told me, nope, they're wrong. That won't be a problem. We can get it done.
Lorky Law is here to help.
I had an incredible experience working with Lorky Law, and without reservation, I would recommend them 100%.
Schedule your consultation today at restoreyourrights.com or call 541-357-6788.
If you miss your smile because you're missing teeth, call Community Dental Lab for a free consultation. They can take care of everything from one tooth to partials to a variety of dentures, even implant dentures. And most work is done on the premises where they strictly follow COVID-19 safety protocols. You'll be pleasantly surprised at how affordable they are, and they accept most insurance and credit cards. Community Dental Lab on Newmark in North Bend, your Bay Area denture service. Call now for your free consultation. 541-756-2121.
The mild temperatures of spring are here, but soon you'll be turning on your air conditioning system every day. Be proactive. Call Mahalo Heating and Air Conditioning now to schedule a visit from a Mahalo cooling expert to make sure your air conditioning system is ready for the heat of summer. Time for a new system? Right now, Mahalo is offering special financing at 0% APR for 72 months on the purchase of a new heating and cooling system. Financing is subject to credit approval. Stay ahead of the heat with a visit from Mahalo Heating and Air Conditioning. A breath of fresh air.
Hey, Tony and Corey here with the Weekend Warriors Home Improvement Show. Hey, Tony, you got some tips on how to get your house ready for summer?
Yeah, start by making a list, then knock the easiest ones out first. Set realistic goals, and finally, don't be a perfectionist.
Well, you've never been accused of that.
Ouch. Tune in this weekend. You'll definitely get a laugh, and you'll likely get some good advice, but only if you listen.
You can catch Parr's Weekend Warriors on Saturdays from 3 to 4 here on KWRO-AM 630 and 101 FM.
Advanced Property Management, the people who can help you find a new home, have found a new home for themselves. That's right, they've moved, but not far. Their new office is just 1 block south of their old location at 342 Anderson Avenue in the back half of the old Tycor Title Building. So if you're looking for a place to rent, visit Advanced Property Management in their new location at 342 Anderson Avenue in Coos Bay. You can also see their listings on the web at advancedpropertymanagementonline.com, find them on Facebook, or call 541-269-7210. Advanced Property Management, the people who can help you find a new home, have found a new home for themselves. That's right, they've moved, but not far. Their new office is just 1 block south of their old location at 342 Anderson Avenue in the back half of the old Tycor Title Building. So if you're looking for a place to rent, visit Advanced Property Management in their new location at 342 Anderson Avenue in Coos Bay. You can also see their listings on the web at advancedpropertymanagementonline.com, find them on Facebook, or call 541-269-7210.
The Immediate Care Clinic at North Bend Medical Center is your provider for prompt professional care 7 days a week. We can help with CDL physicals, workman's comp claims, testing for COVID-19, imaging, labs, and specialty consultations. Appointments are easy. We offer telemedicine and scheduled visits. Walk-ins are always welcome. The Immediate Care Clinic at North Bend Medical Center is here for you. Call 541-266-1789 or online at nbmchealth.com.
Camp Perry, Woodstown, Oregon. I want to welcome everyone back who's listening tonight to the last listening session about the proposal for offshore wind off the coast of Oregon. We're featuring State Representative David Brock-Smith, and it's being broadcast to you live from Charleston on behalf of our sponsors. And we're so proud of England Marine and Chuck Seafood, North Bend Lanes, of course, Hooked on Oregon, Mel Campbell for sponsoring this event, and for all of you for being here. What a joy to have you out on this beautiful evening to be able to talk about a project that is so critically important to all all of us to have the right information and know how to respond and how to work with this project and with our state representative. So without further ado, I want to bring back our state representative, David Bruck-Smith.
And thank you again to all of our sponsors and especially everyone that took the time to be here. In your handout that I want to thank Mark for, because he printed out, and also Susan Chambers printed some out. But for those that are listening, the opportunity to comment to the Oregon Department of Energy is on those that are here, last page. And you can see the website there, but it's www.oregon.gov/energy/Energy Oregon. And then you move forward there with pages and then floating or FOSW.ASPX. So if you go to the Oregon Department, Oregon.gov website/energy, and you go to the energy Oregon Department of Energy's website, you'll also see a link to where you can comment if you didn't catch all of that. When it comes to the BOEM process, it's a little more. It's incredibly important that you go to www.regulations.gov, and then in the search box that will be provided, you enter BOEM. That is BOEM/2022-0009 and click search, and then follow the instructions to submit public comments on these call areas off of Oregon. And so we'll give you that information again later, but everyone here has it. And so now I want to open it up to all of you, as we've been doing up and down the coast, to hear from all of you and your thoughts, concerns, and any questions you might have that I might be able to answer. I'm by far no expert on any of this, but I will go to others like Susan Chambers, because she's in the room and she knows a lot about this process and what's going on with BOEM as well. And of course, Commissioner Maine is here, and he's been through the gamut on this as well. So I want to open it up to anyone who wants to come up. Please just give us your name, where you're from, and what are your thoughts.
Thank everybody for being here. I can go on record as opposing this project. It is in the wrong place for our fishermen and Bob Maine, Coos County Commissioner. It is detrimental to our commercial and sport fisheries, as well as our commercial commerce. I sit as one of two coastal commissioners on BOEM. I was surprised as everybody else about when I read in the paper of the call areas. Nobody discussed that with us. We didn't have a meeting about that. It was just thrown out there and said, oh, we have call areas. We want comments. Up until that point, they were talking about different things. And one of the things that really stuck with me, that really irritated me, was that they had a gentleman from the Audubon Society from Portland. And they were discussing the bird strikes, because there's tens of thousands of bird strikes, bat strikes, etc., on land with these windmills. They asked him if he knew anything about strikes on the ocean. And he said, no, we don't have any data. And asked him what they would do. And he said, well, they could just grow more birds. But I'm thinking, cool, why can't the timber companies do that on land then? It was good for them. Why not everybody else? Didn't have an answer for that one. Another thing that hasn't been discussed much is who's going to pay for the onshore infrastructure. And I had a meeting with one of the second largest wind energy companies from Germany. And I posed that question, and they didn't come right out and say it, but they indicated it's going to be all of us. We, the taxpayers, whether it's port improvements, whether it's lines going inland, etc. And it's wrong, I think, for investors to want us to pay for all this infrastructure where they're the ones that are going to benefit. But it even gets worse. And this is the most important thing I want you to know besides the devastation to our fishing fleet. Have you heard about the scheme to entice investors? Anybody? Well, they've done this. It's already happened on the East Coast where you have 2 wind energy projects out in the ocean, one off of Virginia and one off of Rhode Island. By the way, the Rhode Island one called Block Island is dead in the water with their 6 units. It's not operating anymore. In fact, the cable washed up on shore and it cost $20 million to put it back underground. So the promoters and the investors lobbied those 2 state legislatures for a bill called feed-in tariff. Now, I've talked to a couple of you about this, but most of you probably have no idea what that means. Feed-in tariff is where in 90,000 foot level, if something goes wrong with a project, the ratepayers, you and I, are on the hook to make the investors whole. Imagine that. We have to make the investors whole if something goes wrong through our power bills. Isn't that great? And it's already been discussed in the Oregon legislature as of 2 years ago, I found out. So it's not new to Oregon either. So this whole thing is really wrong as far as I'm concerned. It affects too many lives here on the South Coast that traditionally we've been fishermen, loggers, etc. It's not a good deal for Southwestern Oregon. Of course, they pick on us because there aren't many of us out there. And the only thing I can think of to stop this thing is eventually go to court. Take a page out of the other environmental groups and say, hey, we object to all these things that you haven't studied yet and proven that it won't affect us. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. And so feed-in tariff, I haven't heard it in the Oregon legislature. So it missed my committee and my meeting, but I'm interested in talking to you more about it. I didn't hear anything about it. And for everyone, I'm everything energy, environment, natural resources in the state legislature. So who's next? Come on up. Thanks for being here. Yeah.
My name's Newt Nemeth, and I've been around this town for about 40 years. I started out as a commercial salmon fisherman down here on B-Dock in 1982. and headed down to California for a trip. So I've been fishing around Charleston here for lots of years. And then I went to work with Sauce Brothers and the towboats. And I'm currently the Charleston Community Enhancement President, and I'm on the Charleston Fishermen's Memorial here. I'm a co-organizer of Oktoberfest, and I'm also a board member of the Oregon Coast Energy Alliance Network, which is working on the wind power here. Now I'm looking around this room here, I'm seeing all community members and people that I've worked with throughout the county and down here in Charleston. And I want to say, as we go through this process, you have questions and we need to find answers. You know, it's going to take a little while to find answers. There's a lot of people that have concerns about the visual sighting. There's people that have concerns about anchoring systems. There's people that have concerns about power lines. You know, these are all good questions. And how do we work together here? What do we look at our energy system like in the future here? Are we going to burn more gas or coal or whatever? Or are we going to find another alternate energy source like solar or wave or wind or maybe something else? But, you know, as we go through here, we got kids and grandkids, and we know we want to try to leave them a better world. Now, I think being on oceans there, I think, you know, a signal that I'm willing to look at wind and ask questions and come up with answers. And looking around all my fishermen friends here, I know you guys got questions and you want answers. And I like working on the ocean. I've been working on the ocean for 40 years. I like getting my hands in the water. I like working the back deck. I like it in the wheelhouse. It's just a thing. What Charleston's really special to me here is this community here, is we're trying to survive all we've gone through here and looking forward to another successful tourist season, getting people in and out of town. And those are concerns that you guys have as to your out of town visitors, how they come in, how they feel. What do they think we're doing down here? So, I don't have all the answers, and we need to find answers. I'm not cutting anything off, and I'm going to tell you I got a dog in the race here. My dog starts 30 miles offshore. I got something other than wind and wave and solar out there. There's the hydrothermal fields out there, the sea cliff thermal fields, 130 to 160 miles offshore here out at the Blanco fracture zone. There's hot water coming out of these vents at 350 to 625 degrees. That's more than enough heat to heat a secondary fluid to run your turbines that drive your generators that send power up the beach. And these things are down there 9,000 feet on the bottom, and they just sit there and hum. And you're not going to be fishing through them or over them or anything like that. So there's possibilities here in the future. So we need to think about them all. And I thank you guys for your time.
Thank you so much. Who would like to come up and have some comments next? Please.
Have a couple more questions. My name is Kathleen Hornstuen, and I've been a resident here for about 45 years in Charleston, and I'm involved with a lot of community projects, especially I'm going to give a plug for the Marine Life Center. Hope you've all been. It's awesome. And my first question is, I do not understand why NOAA has no say in this energy field of what's going on offshore, because everything that we do on the ocean, from putting in a piling with the port, has to be approved by environmental quality. And I don't understand why this doesn't. And the other thing is, I want to know if anybody knows what the effect on shipping is going to be as far as navigating through these things. Does anyone know?
You can't cross any. You can't fly over.
Because we have a lot of shipping and a lot more coming our way if we get Deepwater Port at GP. So that's going to be a problem because that's a large area.
I might be able to.
Oh, good. Okay, I'll listen.
You don't have to play it on the wrong way, but and so as you can see on your map here, so we're all familiar with the North Point project and the Port of Coos Bay and what's happening with the possible container shipping, which is just an amazing opportunity for these communities here in Coos Bay in general. That's seen generations of poverty, right? As you can see, the proposed area, the east side of that area is roughly 13 miles offshore. And then the outer, or the west side of the area is, roughly 13 miles offshore. And the outer side, or the west side of the area, is a little over 20. And as I mentioned earlier, this large coastal area will be reduced down to roughly less than 20% of what this size is. And then my understanding, and this is new information just today because the lease provisions came out today in California, and I haven't had the chance to really dive and study them. But my understanding is these turbines will be roughly a mile apart or so. They're 800 feet tall. They're massive. And that they're working on lease provisions off of Humboldt Bay that would give that would be part of the lease provisions that would equip the fishing vessels with the gear to be able to fish inside or between these floating platforms. Of course, you wouldn't be able to trawl within those areas, but you would be able to have the gear or the radar and equipment to be able to fish between. Is part of the lease provisions that my understanding is happening out of Humboldt Bay. But again, I still need to dive into them. So.
What about the big ship?
So I can imagine the large ships would have to come either north or south of these to come in to the Port of Coos Bay.
Is that a navigational problem?
I don't believe so. I haven't heard anything on that issue from the port since the call areas have been established and we're working on the North Point project. So.
What about the Dillon question? How come we got
BOEM is a separate federal agency within the Department of the Interior that does not have to adhere to the same guidelines that all of us do. That is something we spoke about last night. I spoke about in Astoria on Monday, and that's something for really our federal delegation, right? Don't forget the BOEM and who is doing this is a federal agency. I'm your state representative. Bob's your county commissioner, right? Your federal delegation, it really needs to be engaged in this as well, and that's why I appreciate Alex Carlatos for being here and listening to all of you and being engaged in this process, because it's important that BOEM have new legislative guidelines that they have to adhere to NOAA. What we need is NOAA's research team here being able to do the work on the EIS and so forth ahead of time to mitigate the impacts to our ecology out there, right? As I mentioned before, the California current, they need to be partnering with NREL and doing the study on the wind drag and what that's going to do to the upwelling and all of these things that aren't going to be done until after the lease agreement. Lease areas are signed, and unfortunately, billions of dollars are paid to lease them, and they're in BOEM's coffers.
BOEM actually stands for Federal Bureau of Ocean Energy Management. Right.
Who would like to be next? Sir.
My name's Robert Hampton. I fish out of here. Yeah. I've got 2 boats. I run a third. Oh, okay. Robert Hampton. I fish out of this port. My question and concern is some of the things I've heard from you. Some of these mitigation efforts sound real good, but they're way too general. The issues with navigation and the radars pretty much being put out of function by these windmills. I heard you say that one option is for them to buy us some magical radar that won't be affected by an 800-foot tall spinning windmill. I haven't heard of that, so I'm not saying it's not true, but that's the first I've heard that there is a capability out there, and I'd like to know more about it as somebody who relies on my radar to see where other boats are and keep track of the shoreline and all that. What was the other one you just said? Equipping us as fishermen to be able to fish in between these windmills. Sounds great. What kind of fishing are you talking about? Salmon I do very little of. Tuna and crab are my prime, and black cod's a smaller part, but getting bigger. So what kind of new fishing is supposed to be opened up to be able to do around these windmills so that them coming in doesn't hurt our livelihood? I guess I'm looking for specifics. I hear these things that sound real good, but I'm not hearing details.
So I don't have any details for you. I don't work for the industry. And the industry, in fact, they reached out yesterday, and my understanding, Susan, is it going to be June 16th and 17th? Coos Bay, and Brookings. So on June 15th, 16th, and 17th, you're going to have in Newport, Coos Bay, and Brookings, so that you can have more questions answered from them. And industry wants to hear from you. I'm talking about the wind industry. Wants to also engage with all of you as well. I'm just here to listen to you and a facilitator and tell you what limited information that I know. I'm not trying to. Agreed.
Somebody says something like that. What are we talking about specifically? To offset how this is going to impact us, we're going to take land use for the last 2 years. How's that going to affect you guys that run other people?
But I don't think it sounds great, sir. I mean, I hope I didn't. Oh, okay.
Somebody's going to be taken care of, and okay, it'll go to help us swallow this a little easier. Oh, sorry. I'm used to conversations. I hope, big picture, that somehow we can find a solution to all this, but being accurate with the details as opposed to generalities, I think will get us a lot farther because it doesn't leave as many open questions. So if we're going to talk about radar, what kind of radar are we talking about? What kind of radar has the capabilities to deal with these windmills? If they're talking about refitting our boats and helping us do that, what are they talking about us fishing for? Specifics here. So with that, I'll say thank you and sit down. But that's part of the conversation.
And indeed, but I don't have those answers. The industry has those answers, and BUM has those answers. And part of the lease my understanding is part of that lease provision process is the engagement with you, the fishermen, and Susan, the industry sector, fishing and processing industry sector, with the wind industry sector, to basically negotiate those things and get those questions answered, which
it's not true.
Will happen if this project moves forward.
No,
that
won't.
Engagement will happen. So I should have said on the onset. The timeline on this, you won't see floating turbines, and correct me if I'm wrong, Bob or Susan, but you're looking at 2029, 2028 before, and that's the soonest that anything would be happening out there. So yeah, it does indeed. I'm not saying that it doesn't. So who would like to be next? Alec, we'll let Sandy go, and then yes, indeed. Thank you so much.
David, I read in a report from Reuters exactly a year ago that the government's own researchers have looked into this issue, and according to their own research, have indicated it would impact commercial fishing industries by 25%. In our area, that is a ton. And the only thing I can find in terms of actual stated impact mitigation is $5.2 million. That's not sufficient. So I'd really like, as others, to hear some more specifics before we're asked to accept this.
I don't know. So we got about a minute and a half before we go to break. So yeah, no, you don't need to be quick, but come on up. We got Alex Carlatos. Thank you, Alex.
So my name is Alex Carlatos. I'm actually running for Congress. In my limited experience with this issue, it seems like just about everyone locally is against it for a variety of reasons, whether environmental or economic, or just wanting to slow the process down so that we have time to have our voices heard. So my question for Representative Brock Smith is that action items, assuming that the listening sessions don't go our way and that a BOEM decide to basically ram through. We have till 2028 or 2029. Where do we go from here, and what are we supposed to do if this process continues?
Thank you so much for the question, Alec. Right now is we need to be engaged in the BOEM process. So we were able to push the comment period for BOEM on these current call areas from 45 days to 60. And so you have the ability to comment to BOEM. And I'm not saying I did it. I mean, the Susan and Heather and Lori and Yelena and all the engagement has pushed that process out another 60 days to June 28th. So it's critically important for everyone to comment on that process moving forward so that we can, so that they can have those comments and put them in the register. It also is critically important for you to reach out to your federal delegation. So Peter DeFazio's office currently, Senator Wyden's office, Senator Merkley's office, and oh wow. And so it's critically important for them to hear your concerns and really the lack of data, right? I mean, it's critically important for them to understand that. Listen, the Biden administration, I mean, here are the facts, right? The Biden administration put out that they want gigawatts of offshore wind around the U.S. BOEM is under the Department of Interior, under the Biden administration, is out trying to facilitate that. We know that there's going to be a red wave coming in November, hopefully, and so they want to get these things done prior to the implementation of a new Congress, that they might not have the support for these type of projects in the future. And so this is why the call areas are going to be lease areas are going to be designated before the end of the year. And so, I mean, that's the reality. And the reality is, I got a planning bill to have a separate voice for all of you at the state legislature, but I'm still in a super minority there. And so we worked to actually stop. I worked with Senator Roblin and Representative Gomberg, and we actually stopped. It was when the Trump administration was looking at offshore oil and gas back in 2019. Off of Oregon. So we passed a bill that said, fine, you can do that in federal waters, but you can't bring anything across to Oregon waters to Oregon shores, is how we wrote the bill. If you think that I, as a Republican from Southwest Oregon, representing all of you, can get them to add offshore wind energy in the state legislature, it's not going to happen. But, and even if we were to do it, it doesn't help South County and Curry of the Brookings Call area, because they'll just take that energy into California. And so they'll have the issues with the infrastructure out in the ocean, but none of the benefit, if you will, of the energy coming ashore. So that's where we're at. And so we need to have the opportunities to have all of your voices heard in the federal process, because that's what this is. So thank you for the question.
All right, we are broadcasting live from Charleston on this beautiful evening. It's our last listening session on the Oregon coast on the proposed offshore wind project, featuring State Representative David Brock-Smith. We're going to take a short break, and then we'll be back with the rest of the public's questions. Thank you so much for listening in tonight. We're proud to have you aboard.
Everyone saves at the Memorial Day celebration event at Ingles Furniture and Mattress.
With your good price, no money down, and get no interest financing for 1, 2, or even up to 5 years.
That's till May 2027.
Or get 50% off
everything in stock.
That's getting more for your hard-earned dollar. And all you have to do is make the monthly payment.
The right furniture for you in 2022. Save big on Lazy Boy rocker recliners. Jasper was $13.99 and the Collage $11.99. Now both are marked down to an incredibly low $5.99.
Don't wait to get what you want.
Over $2 million of new furniture in stock.
At Ingles Memorial Day celebration event.
No money down.
And 0% financing for up to 5 years.
Or get 50% off everything in stock.
Come in early and save in downtown North Bend at Ingles Furniture and Mattress.
Sale ends Memorial Day.
Your mattress is the most important thing for restful sleep. Hennick's Furniture in Banning carries over 14 mattresses from 3 different manufacturers. Chiropractors and doctors recommend changing your mattress every 5 to 7 years. Hennick's has queen sets starting at $349. Finance options are available on approved credit. We make buying a mattress easy. Hennick's Furniture, 88298 Highway 42 South Bandon, 541-329-1233.
Father's Day will be here soon, and we want to make sure that day is special. We put together, with the help of our local advertisers, a dandy gift basket for Dad. You can enter for your chance to win this great gift basket for dear old Dad just by going to Juergens Jewelers, the Pottery Company, and Chuckerberry's to enter for your chance to win. Win your dad a fantastic Father's Day basket. Brought to you by the Pottery Company, Juergens Jewelers, Chuckerberry's, and Bi-Coastal Media.
Happy Memorial Day from Tom and Giggs Automotive. Although we help you play hard with off-road performance products like hitches, winches, towing accessories, and RC vehicles, Memorial Day is about more than playing. It's about honoring those who died with gratitude and pride. Always remember why our heroes have sacrificed themselves so that we remain free. Freedom is not free. Thank you to the families of the men and women who gave all. From the family at Tom and Giggs Automotive.
Running a small business is challenging, which is why you need a bank that can help you and your business succeed. As a community bank specializing in business, Oregon Pacific Bank offers commercial loans, trust services, nonprofit solutions, and more. See how we've helped other businesses and connect with a local banker at bankonopb.com. Oregon Pacific Bank, here for business. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
This is AM 630 and FM 101.1 KWRO. Listen live online and find out about community events at KWRO.com.
Here's your Oregon Coast weather.
Hi, it's JT with your South Coast weather forecast. Partly cloudy skies tonight, increasing clouds in the late night and early morning hours with a low of 53 and light winds. Overcast conditions for your Friday with a high of 61 and a few showers on Friday night, becoming a steady rain overnight. Thank you for listening. Stay safe out there.
Well, welcome back. We're doing the very last live listening session on the offshore wind project proposed for the Oregon coast. And it's our last chance as a public here to comment. David Brock-Smith, of course, our state representative, doing a wonderful job of trying to fill us in on what he knows so far about this project. And we so appreciate you listening tonight and all the members of the public that came here, because I don't think there's a more critical issue for the state of Oregon right now because of what wind energy could affect. And we'd like to continue tonight with your questions, and I'm going to turn it back over to State Representative David Brock-Smith.
Thank you so much, Cam. Again, it's a privilege to be here, and I want to thank North Bend Lanes and KWRO and England Marine and Chuck Seafood, and of course our wonderful Mel Campbell and my dear friend Cam Perry and Hooked on Oregon for all sponsoring tonight's events, but more importantly for all of you to be here and giving us your input. Again, your input is going to help craft a letter for the Coastal Caucus to give to not only the state and the Oregon Department of Energy, but the BOEM, Bureau of Ocean Energy Management, our Governor Brown, and our federal delegation. And so it's critically important. This is the last of 6 listening sessions up and down the coast, 2 of which were in Coos Bay, 1 in Brookings, 1 in Newport, 1 in Astoria. And this is the 6th in Charleston. So who would like to come up and give some more comments? You didn't have to take off your hat. You're not on camera, my friend.
I am a handsome man. Hi, Josh Bettisworth. I'm actually reading this letter on behalf of the president of the Oregon Anglers Alliance, which is currently the largest angling advocacy group. And the OAA has been involved in everything from the Coquille River, getting the local tribe, the Coquille tribe, involved. For those of you that don't know, yesterday we put our first 50 fish, which I know is not a big number, but 50 fish. I think that's the first thing that Co-Keel Step has done with fish. And I know at least 2 or 3 years, probably closer to 7, but I'll read the letter again. This is from Leonard Krug, the president of the Oregon Anglers Alliance. The Oregon Anglers Alliance is a 501c3 environmental education organization with over 65,000 members. It is the largest angling advocacy group in the state of Oregon. It is comprised of commercial, tribal, and recreational anglers, seafood processors, and related angling businesses. We have a few interesting points regarding the Oregon's proposed offshore wind project. Did you know that the Oregon Hatchery Research Center has studies that demonstrate that metals restrict our salmon's homing ability? If you place a piece of iron into a tank of salmon, they will change direction that they are facing according to the placement of the metal. And if you add a component with dissimilar metals, like a conventional power conductor, that it disorients them so much that they cannot find a common direction. So we are going to put thousands of miles of cable and steel into the ocean, which alone will create enough current for our salmon to likely become completely disoriented. This is a question that the Oregon Anglers Alliance wants answered before anything happens. Some of these species are ESA listed. I'll continue with the letter though. But we'll also connect a current to it and create one giant electromagnetic force field. This may cause the crash of much of North America's salmon, not to mention all of our other precious marine life, such as our migratory pelagic species and whale echolocation ability, just to name a few. We don't know. We have no answers. Nobody's got any clue what this is going to take. That is why we do the EIS, Environmental Impact Study. It's why we do it before we even talk about building anything. You wouldn't go build a house on a piece of ground you never looked at. What ends up happening is you build in a swamp or you build someplace with a bad foundation. We don't have any real world practical application to guide us. It makes sense to halt this process until we can have at least some assurances that it won't destroy one of the most pristine marine environments in the world, otherwise known as the California current, one of the largest and most productive fishing currents in the world, one of the largest and most important ecological systems in the world. This is the Oregon coast. This is why we live here. 2, part of any credible project plan includes a risk-reward assessment profile. We know the risk, and it's huge, but the reward is not well defined. This is part of why I give David kudos, is by putting this bill forward that he put forward, he guaranteed us a place at the table to get these questions answered. Some people wanted to drag him through the mud a little bit, and well, that doesn't make sense for David to put a bill like that forward. And I personally called him. He said, Josh, I want to explain it. I want to explain it to everyone. That's why these meetings are happening. That's why these things are coming on the way they are. Okay, back to the letter. These windmills will produce 3 gigawatts of power annually. The state of California will likely be the high bidder for this so-called green energy, as the power demand is fast outpacing their ability to purchase power, especially since they have moved away from much of their traditional power sources from the national grid, such as coal, hydro, and gas. 3 gigawatts. That really does sound like a lot. 1,000 megawatts equals 1 gigawatt. That one really, I don't know how better to explain it, but let's put this into perspective that the current annual demand for electricity in the state of California is nearly 200,000 gigawatts. We're making 3 gigawatts and we're destroying probably one of the, if not probably the most important ecological system in the state of Oregon, California, and Washington. People think that dams are bad. They thought the dams disrupted salmon. This is on a scale that makes the dams look small. And I agree with dams. I think dams are a great thing. I think that they're They're the most renewable energy there are. They have downsides, sure. Cost benefit analysis. So we're going to sacrifice one of the most pristine marine ecosystems on Earth for 3 gigawatts that will not even benefit Oregon and is but a sliver of the energy for California. There's no data to show that this will be a disaster. There's no data to say that it will be good or bad. There is no environmental impact statement, which is the first part of any project by law, which is by federal law. But because the Biden administration has given the order to circumvent all environmental policy and procedure and get this green energy online now, BOEM states that they will do an environmental assessment later. What does that mean? It's not an environmental assessment. It's their private opinion that will likely be a canned response for their projects. The whole thing is like a script from a science fiction movie. This is not new. It's been planned for years. We are late to the table. When were you approached, David, about this? Is it...
Well, so I was planning the bill first part of 2021.
2021. Most people hadn't heard of this that I've talked to, have not heard about this we brought it to their attention. Most people in the state of Oregon, but that is the key. That's what our state representative did for us. He brought us all together to talk about it. Does that make sense? That's why I support David when he does things. Our last hope is November. It is important that people do not vote party lines, that you vote for the state of Oregon. If you need help finding out who to vote for, contact the Oregon Anglers Alliance. We will be happy to tell you who we think you should go with. Vote for someone that understands how to restore our salmon abundance and enhance our environment, not destroy it. This has shown the true colors of some of these environmental groups. The same groups that fought to have the windmills put in the gorge, that told us how it was going to give us all this great energy and we were going to have all this extra money and these jobs, turned out to be the same groups that are now suing landowners and companies for bird strikes. Kind of a catch-22 for me. Again, these are comments from Leonard Krug, president of the Oregon Anglers Alliance. I would make a couple of my own comments. So David has worked very closely with the Oregon Anglers Alliance. The Oregon Anglers Alliance has been on an uphill fight for, how old are we now? A year and a half, 2 years old. Every time that we have had to get into a hard fight, a gritty fight where we had to have facts and we had to have people, David's been right there. It takes nothing to make a small contribution to a political party or what is your thing called? To his PAC. I know that he's not here for that, but he works out of one of the smallest districts as far as economic value. He deals with the amount of money that is, most of us have more money coming into our household budget. These are the politicians we need to support. If you want a list of those, we'll have them at OregonAnglersAlliance.com shortly.
Thank you, Josh. And thanks for giving, give Josh a hand. And thanks for your work with the Oregon Anglers Alliance. It's a fantastic organization. And so Josh touched on it briefly, and we're going to just go out on a quick tangent, but it's just critical for the natural resource economies that we deal with. So we have a big push in the legislature that, well, some of us do, that we want data and science-driven data for our Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife, right? That's what you want for NOAA, for your quotas. But we want that data to guide how and what there's going to be regulated when we move forward with those regulations to the department. And too often I've had to testify, and I'm just really disappointed with Mary Wall, the chair of the ODF&W Commission, who is our representative on that commission, but she also has a house in Portland and votes to better represent those constituents or demographics rather than the ones down here. But here on the South from Umpqua, we had a summer steelhead program that just last month, against the agency's, the department's data, the commission voted, the majority of the commission voted to disband the program and dispatch the fish. Over 70,000 smolts. And it was Josh and Leonard and the Oregon Anglers Alliance and Cam and Hooked on Oregon and my office and Representative Wright and the tribes, the Coquille tribe, the Cow Creek Band of Indians, all came together, and there was actually 5 tribes, and pushed back hard. And then they got together with Douglas County, who then filed an injunction. And just last week, the judge ruled in their favor, and they will be releasing those fish. Oh, wonderful. Yeah. So what I did is I got a hold of right after it happened, I got a hold of the assistant director at ODF&W, and I said, you better not release those fish in any of the watershed, and you better hold on to them. I'm like, we assure you it'll be at least through the end of May. Okay. So I'm glad that was expedited. But the Oregon Anglers Alliance is a powerful organization. It's new, but it has so many wonderful individuals from both parties, right? It's a nonpartisan group that wants science-driven data so that we can make the decisions that are necessary moving forward. Because what scares the heck out of me is, as we get these resources and we give them to the agency and we give the commission this data that's science-driven, and then they just vote purely politics rather than what they should be, where are we at? So, small tangent. Thanks for opening it up. Who would like to be next to talk about offshore wind? Sure.
My name is John Ward. I've fished the Oregon coast for almost 50 years, but not as a commercial fisherman. I fished it for 50 years for fun, so maybe that shouldn't count. But it does to me. I don't want to give that up either. I don't make a penny off of my fishing, and I spend a whole lot on it.
England Marine?
Well, I think Mark can say, and my wife would certainly say, I don't go in there without buying something. So at any rate, and I am also a board member of OAA, and one of the things I would like to emphasize about it, for years, ODFW has wanted to have us fight with the commercial fishermen over who catches the last fish, and we're not going to do that. So our organization is with the commercial fishing. We don't want to. We know the technology is there to have lots of fish, and we can get there. And I moved here for one reason only. 50 years ago, I moved here for the salmon fishing from California. And if this was coming down 30, 40 years ago, I might go move somewhere else. I'm a little too old for that now, but we have to slow this thing down. Like some people have said, maybe somehow, some way, but we have your, and the risk is too high. I mean, on a risk-benefit ratio, we're risking salmon not ever finding their way to the Coos River, to the Umpqua River, to the Coquille River, the Elk River, the Chetco River. That could happen. I'm not obviously we don't know, but enough people who know a lot more than anybody in this room are quite concerned about that. A lot of science teams are. We've heard that in other meetings on this subject. So my final thing to say here is sports fishing is important here too. Lots of businesses cater to sports fishing. Lots of tourists come here for sports fishing. I just can't imagine living here without these fisheries. Can't imagine it. And people say we could replace it with other things. Nothing would replace it. Money won't replace what the Oregon coast is. Nobody can do that. So please, as this goes along and we have more meetings, do everything you can to make them slow down and make them do what any other agency would do. They would have their environmental impact statement up for us to look at. But how are they getting around what even big federal outfits can't get around? You know, something's really wrong here. Anyway, so I just implore everybody here to do everything they can as this thing moves forward to slow it down and, if necessary, stop it. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. I'd like to come up and have some comments next.
I'm Mark Fleck with England Marine. Thank you, John. That was nice. I'll put a good word in with your wife, by the way. So our company's been serving commercial fishermen for a long time, since 1944. But I just wanted to come up in support of all the other allied businesses and support business. So go along with it. Got to remember, we got machine shipyards, we've got boat painters, we have hydraulic shops, we have a lot of other business associated with this fleet in these coastal communities. And I just wanted to, just make it known that the economical impacts go much farther than these little coastal towns. Our reach goes into the I-5 corridor. We have trucks, we truck fish, we freeze fish, heat trucks. I can't tell you how many container loads of fish into this little port here. So just remember that. I just want to, let's not forget about all these other little guys around here that do a hell of a lot of work that keep these fleets going. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. And thanks again for being one of the partners and sponsoring tonight's event. Sure. Got it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, I'm Steve Godin, and I'm the president of the Oregon Coast Anglers. We have membership that runs from Florence all the way down to Brookings. I wanted to comment on some of the questions that were asked earlier. I've been engaged in this process for a while. I'm not a federal employee. I'm not a state employee. I'm a sport angler. So there was a question about BOEM and how they get to do this and not do that. Many of us are familiar with the Pacific Fisheries Management Council, and that's an extension of NOAA. And so you've got all this stuff that leads up to the top of the federal government. Well, the PFMC has to manage itself by the Magnuson-Stevens Act. That protects all of and identifies the ESA listed whales, mammals, fish, everything under the sun. All the commercial anglers and all of the recreational anglers have to abide by the regulations from the PFMC that deal with the Magnuson-Stevens Act, telling them that they have to manage our fisheries, not just the Gulf Coast, the East Coast, by the best science that's available. So that act was passed many, many years ago to protect us, the fish, from us and others. And BOEM doesn't have to abide by those regulations at all. So it's good for us, but it's not good for the federal government. BOEM was put in charge of this process by the current government, and they were the lead organization. So therefore, NOAA is a support organization that can advise BOEM. They can't tell BOEM what to do. Additionally, and the thing that really gets me, is the U.S. Coast Guard that protects us from everything, saves our lives out in the ocean, is an advisory group to BOEM. They can't tell BOEM what to do. So that's where we're at. And that's what's scary to me, is that BOEM has that much power. Okay, so I just wanted to put that in perspective. The other question that was interesting that I have a little input on is radar. Radar on these it doesn't work. There's too much turbulence caused by these spinning things up there. They cause all kinds of stuff in your radar that's not a boat, not a turbine. You don't know what it is. So is there going to be some radar that will do that and basically give you better identification around these turbines? That's a good question. It doesn't exist right now. And have it. So God forbid you have an accident out there in the ocean and one of these turbines is between you and the Coast Guard and the fog's it. Sorry about that. So they may get a radar unit that works, and I'm sure the Coast Guard would be the first ones to get it, and your tax dollars are going to pay for that. But then when it comes to the wreck fishermen like me, I mean, I have a $10,000 error on my boat. I mean, we got wreck fishermen that don't have boats that cost that much. So, and the commercial guys, you know, maybe they can afford it. I don't know. And maybe the BOEM will give them some money so they can go buy it. But that's far out in the future. It does not exist right now. All right, so enough about that stuff. And I prepared a little presentation, and I had to do this because there was no way on this green earth I could put all this together and keep it in the right context as I was speaking to you. I'm not that good at this stuff. So you know who I am. I'm a member of the Pacific Fishery Management Council through the Groundfish Advisory Panel. Susan Chambers over there is our boss. Not really boss, but she's our fearless leader. She's very good. I'm also a member of the council, so I get to talk to ODFW about the things I don't like and some things I do like. And most of all, I'm a concerned angler, just like all of you out here. Okay, so I presented and published factual information regarding floating wind turbines in Winchester Bay a few weeks back, in Brookings 2 days ago. And there will be presentations in Bandon on May 28th at the Community Center Barn. That's next this Saturday at 1 o'clock. And in Florence at the Elks Lodge on June 1st, starting at 6. That's to help people understand what these things look like, what timeline we're on. The people out there that are just remotely concerned about this don't have any information to go by other than that they don't think they like this and they don't know why. So I participated in the listening sessions in Coos Bay and Brookings. I was online at Brookings. I've heard all the testimony by concerned anglers, recreational, commercial, seafood processors, and the public. I've read the draft response created by the PFMC to BOEM. This isn't for public knowledge, but this is 10 pages long. It's about all the things that are wrong in this process. I would tell you that similar type of document has existed in almost every other instance of these wind farms going in place. Okay. So I've made, based on what I've read, what I've heard, I have made suggestions both to the PFMC and ODFW regarding their responses to BOEM, because both of those organizations interact directly with BOEM. I do not. Too little is known regarding the viability of deep water wind farms on our west coast. We need to know what trade-offs are being made and if they are justified. If we can't slow BOEM down, then don't install the wind turbines inside a depth of 1,300 meters. That is not a new number. 1,300 meters has been discussed for quite some time. And if you look at the call areas for Coos Bay and for Brookings, on the outskirts of those call areas, the furthest ones out, they're actually in those kinds of depths. So 1,300 meters is all very deep. That's over 4,000 feet deep, 4,200 something. But it is possible. I mean, if you're going to put them out there and float them in the first place, whether they're floating in 10 feet of water or 1,000 feet of water, they're floating. All right. So in some ways, I'm not saying this is a panacea. In some ways, this will reduce the impact of wind turbines on the marine ecosystem and fishing. So that 1,300 meters is also supported by a lot of commercial fishermen that I've talked to. I've tracked BOEM's path of destruction on the East Coast. Similar arguments have been raised there and down south in California regarding the Humboldt and Morro Bay call areas. BOEM has ignored the voices of reason and plowed ahead. I'm afraid that BOEM will treat Oregon with the same disregard as they have other states. And as a last resort, lawsuits have been launched by various concerned groups against BOEM and wind farm leaseholders on the East Coast and other places they've been installed. So here we are. What can we do? Are we doomed? Is there no recourse? After participating online at the Brookings listening session, I've arrived at the following conclusions. First, listening gets nothing done. I mean, we can talk about this till we're blue in the face. It takes action. So I represented David Brock-Smith and the Brookings meeting and mentioned the supermajority of Democrats in Salem. He even mentioned it this evening about some of the work that he's done. The difficulty in changing of this with a supermajority is going to be difficult, if not impossible. Yet, David sponsored HB 3375. He's a Republican. It passed the House and Senate easily. It was almost a majority in the House. So I request that we go back to the Oregon legislators and amend HB 3375 to push the BOEM wind farms out to a depth of 1,300 meters. You can have your 3 gigabytes of power, just move it off our coast further. Don't interrupt all our commercial anglers and our trawlers and recreational fishermen. Don't put us all at risk in navigation safety hazards. So 1,300 meters to me is an important number. David also mentioned a strong letter of opposition from the Coastal Caucus at the Brookings meeting. I would also like to see in that letter a similar request from the Coastal Caucus. So it's not enough to air our concerns at these listening sessions. We must follow through and address those concerns to Oregon state and federal legislators and to BOEM. I urge all of you to document your concerns to all the legislators. There is a handout available. I brought one with me. I've handed this out at the sessions, the presentations that I've made. Where'd they go? Did I leave them back there at my chair? No, they're here somewhere. Okay, anyway, I have them and I'll be happy to give them to you. It lists all of the local legislators. Oh, I know where it is. They're right underneath the folder here. They're handy, so I'd be able to get them. Anyway, so the handout you had, the one that you got here, is very good. That gets you to BOEM. This one I'll give to you. This has all the legislators and all the contact information so you can simply email them with your concerns. So the easiest way to do that is to put the document together in Word or whatever you have on your PC, and then copy it into your PC and get all these addresses on there and let it fly. It's not hard. This stuff is not hard, and it takes us to do it. All right. And you can reach the BOEM. It's the regulations.eregulations.gov is the BOEM site that you have to go to, and David already addressed that. So is that enough? It remains to be seen. What if it isn't? What then? All the wind energy power has to be grounded somewhere on the coast, either our coast, California's coast, or Washington's coast. It's got to come to ground somewhere. It's sitting out there by itself doesn't do anybody any good. So what if the county legislators, like Bob Mann and others, what if the commissioners said, no, we're not going to do that here? Or that we put up so many obstacles that they don't want to do it here. Corporations call it a poison pill. They go out and buy some other thing that nobody else wants, so they can't be taken over. Similar logic. So what do coastal counties get out of floating windmills? Well, perhaps the county might get something if they were to build them here. It remains to be seen if it's possible. You go up to 15 megawatts, which is what they're talking about for installation out here, which doesn't exist, by the way. Nobody's built one that big yet. They're huge. So I don't know if you could get one right through your outlet of the river. At any rate, that's to be seen. All right, so the very obvious floating wind turbines will be a constant reminder of how our state and federal legislators failed us. Our state and federal legislators won't fix this. Let's take action in our coastal counties. And if this approach is unsuccessful, then we'll do what everybody's doing on the East Coast. The judicial system is our last gasp. So with that, thank you, David, for the opportunity to speak. Thank you all for listening.
Thank you so much for that wealth of information, and I appreciate all of your advocacy and engagement on this, and not just this, but all fisher issues that we have on the coast. Appreciate all your work.
Right? Yeah, we're broadcasting live from the fishing village of Charleston tonight. It's the last listening session on the Oregon coast about the proposed wind energy project, and it's featuring Representative David Brock Smith. We're going to take a short break and be back for closing and any last questions that we might have. Can I have a show of hands? Anybody that's got a question left that wants to talk before we're through tonight? Do you have anybody else? Well, it looks like I'm going to let David then do a little bit of a closing. Yeah, let's go ahead and wrap it up, and we'll let David do a little bit of a closing, and then we'll sign out on this historic first for Bi-Coastal Media.
Thank you so much, Cam. And I just want to thank all of you for being here, and those that spoke. I heard you, and we heard you, and those that didn't, you're here wanting more information, but I'm seeing and watching you nod when someone's talking and when you're listening to others. And so I appreciate your engagement and wanting to be here. And Steve, I can tell you that 1,300 plus is already in the letter, right? Yes, because as I said earlier, when you're looking out on the East Coast and the new collar areas, they're looking at 50 plus miles out and up into 2,500 meters. So it is possible. But I want you all to know that I have thoroughly enjoyed driving up and down the coast, listening to all of your concerns, and we will fight for you and continue to do so. Our coastal communities and their culture are critically important to all of us on the coast. And it's going to take all of us to make sure that your voice is heard. Because as I'm hearing you, I'm going to make sure that your voice is heard loud and clear elsewhere to our federal and state delegation as well. So it's an honor and privilege to serve you in the Oregon legislature. I can't thank you enough, Mark and KWRO, for this opportunity to have this listening session and press conference and informational session on this critically important topic offsite here in beautiful Charleston. England Marine, our sponsor, Chuck Seafood, Mel Campbell, the beautiful, wonderful Mel Campbell in the back, and my dear friend, North Bend Lanes, and my dear friend Cam Perry in Hooked on Oregon, for all of the great work and advocacy that you do for our fishermen and their industries and our communities on the coast of Oregon. So with that, I'll kick it back to you, Cam. And
I think this gentleman deserves a big hand. Outstanding job being here. Thank you, David. Well, this concludes our first ever live broadcast of a news conference and a listening session for KWRO and 101.1 FM on Bicoastal Media. We're very proud and honored to have been able to do this and bring it to you live from Charleston. You know, the one thing I think we all take home tonight is all we hear about is how bad things are in America and how tough things are in America, and things are going so wrong. But everything that's right in America is right in this room tonight and out there in our listening audience. And I want to thank all of you for that. Give yourselves a hand for being here and being a part of this process. Outstanding job. Well, thank you all out there listening on the radio. We appreciate you joining us tonight. And we're going to be signing off live from Charleston with our first ever news broadcast, press conference broadcast from the Oregon coast. Thank you all for being with us tonight.